Hi everyone and welcome back. It's been a while since we posted anything, but we've been busy working on the B6 and getting it farther along as we get to our ultimate goal of getting it 100% finished. One of the big things that we worked on in the past 3 months or so have been the cab, the roof of the cab, and the ash pan, as well as getting the underside of the locomotive painted and rust prevented so that it doesn't rust and it looks good so we can put a final coat of paint on it. The ash pan, this is the engineer side ash pan, but the fireman side looks identical. It's just about done. All the brackets are done. I welded all the rivets in place for the brackets. We also fabricated new ends. Overall, it's about 99% done. It still needs a little bit of touch-up work that I usually save for like a rainy day when I come in and I might be waiting on someone to get something else done. So we're going to dust off some of the sides here where it looks just a little bit rough. But other than that, it's completely finished. And I wanted to take a couple minutes and kind of show everybody like what the inside looks like, because the outside really doesn't do it justice. I'll probably do a video of me showing the ash pan of what it looked like before so we can have a side-by-side comparison, because from what it looked like to what it looked like now are totally different. You can remember some of it, there were holes in the old one. A lot of the parts that it came with were missing, so we had to fabricate the new ends, we had to fabricate new brackets because the brackets were pretty much shot. We were originally going to fix them, but it just was a little bit easier to get new ones fabricated up and bent to the right angles. And a lot of the work the volunteers and I have been inside the ash pan where you can't see it from the outside. So there were a lot of pieces of metal inside that were rusted that needed fixed, and I spent probably a good part of a month or so just getting everything inside cleaned up, all the rusty parts cut out and replaced, and everything painted, bolts replaced, rivets replaced. So there's a lot going on with this, that it's more than just the outside. And that's a lot of the work we do. It's kind of a shame sometimes, but a lot of the work we do, people don't even see. So like we're repairing things that are underneath something that are rusty, but if you just cover them up, 20 years down the road, it's going to become more of a problem. What we like to do here is get it so that we do it once and we're done. And that means it usually takes a little bit longer, but in the end it's good because we get all the rust taken care of, and there won't be anything behind the scenes that's continuing to deteriorate that you won't know until it gets really bad. And a lot of times with this stuff too is like once it gets really bad, it's too late, and now it's a way bigger project than it would have been if you had just grabbed it in the beginning. So I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to zoom in on the inside of the ash pan and kind of show everybody what the inside looks like. It's a little dirty because I've been cutting stuff and metal has been falling into the pan, but you'll get a good idea of kind of what we're dealing with. So this is what the inside of the ash pan's looking like. Now all the bolts at the far end back there, my light fell, all the bolts at the far end the holes had to be drilled in the new pan and everything had to be lined up. This is the wheel arch you remember me from a couple videos ago I had to fix. So this is now in place, and there were also pieces of metal here. You can see one of them right here. That is one of the new brackets that I had to make. So originally they didn't want any ash falling out of the pan and potentially catching the ties or anything on fire. So they had all these extra pieces of metal that were in here that had to be remade and bolted in place so that to mimic what the originally would have had, of where the ash, there would have been no spot for the ash to fall through the pan. So you can see here's a really good shot of the bracket. I chose to weld the inside of the rivets. Now the reason being is I wanted it that in case one day for whatever reason this pan needs dropped again, whether it needs an updated restoration or whatever, you can cut the rivets off without damaging the bracket and you can reuse the bracket again. So if you see these washers inside, that was my thought process behind that, is to kind of preserve them because they did a really good job. You can see on this bracket here, specifically right here, it's actually got a second bend in it to go around the wheel arch, which I thought was pretty cool. This one has it as well. So this is what the inside of the pan looks like. I said we've been working on this since January. You can see way inside there's a line of bolts, and all that has been completely painted. There's a whole bunch of patches inside there as well that were on a couple videos ago. But this is what this pan looks like now, which is much better than what it looked like before. There's a piece of angle here that holds it to the locomotive itself, which is back here, that I remade and re-drilled all the holes. So it was quite a project, but at least it's done and it looks pretty good. It just needs a little bit of cleanup. The other side is identical, so it's not too different. All right, so I am on a lift, but I wanted to give everybody kind of a better view of what we're dealing with on the roof because it's a little difficult to see down from below, and if I'm on top, it's hard to see as well. So a big chunk of what we're doing on this engine is we chose not to replace the cab. And the reasoning behind that was it's going to save us some money, and overall the condition of it wasn't too bad. There's a whole bunch of spots that need a little bit of touch up, but overall the bones of the cab are good. There's not too much rust, and what's here can be saved. And we always like to go with if it can be saved in its original, we try to save it. So there's a couple key spots up here. It's a little difficult for me to move the camera around while I'm on the lift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go behind the camera and I'll walk everybody through exactly what we're doing with the cab. But you can see here is the big thing. There was one section of roof here that I had to cut out completely because it was just really, really bad. So I already made the part for the roof to get patched. I made that today. So what I want to do is just kind of show everybody what was involved with this roof, because there's a lot more to it than you might think. There's pieces I had to cut off, rivets I had to cut off. And the challenging thing about rivets, so what a rivet is before welding was invented, they used to heat up a piece of metal and they would hit it on one side and hold it on the other, and as the piece cooled, it would squeeze the metal together and hold it. And that was the idea of what a rivet was. It predates welding, before welding got really popular. Now, the tricky thing about rivets is that when you cut a rivet off, you don't just pop it through like a bolt. So I learned that the hard way. So all these holes up here, I had to cut the rivet off, then heat the rivet and punch it through with the center punch. So I chose not to use an air hammer because that can get destructive. Believe it or not, the roof on this engine is only about 1/8 inch thick. 10 gauge metal is what I'm replacing it with. So it's not as thick as you might think. So it can get really easily warped and damaged if you go crazy with like air tools and stuff. So it does take time. So I'm spending a good bit of time getting this where it is, but overall it's going to look good. I'm going to go behind the camera so I can zoom in on a couple spots. So here is what I've been working on for the past month or so. I have the big chunk of roof cut away. That was completely rotten. So underneath this, the reason why there's all the holes here, there was actually a piece of channel, and the channel rotted out. And when the channel rotted out, it rotted the roof with it. And there's a lot of parts inside that were rusty as well. You can see right here is a piece of angle. There are 4 pieces of angle that stiffen the roof, and you might be able to see the rivet lines up here as they come down. And that's what gives the roof strength, because the roof is only 1/8 inch thick. You can kind of see here, it's not really that thick. And right here is where it overlapped. So they put a strengthening channel between the two, and unfortunately that rotted out, and I had to cut the channel away. I got new ones made, but that took a lot of time, and there was a lot of damage kind of just because how it was made and how it got water trapped in there. So I cut the rivets all the way back to the end as well, and that's what I'm working on. And I also removed, on the engineer's cab side, you can see there's a trail of where rivets were here, and there's 2 down there. Those are where additional angles ran down the cab to strengthen it as well, and those are completely rotten. We need to get those remade. I also removed yesterday, you can see right here where this black strip of paint is, I removed the rain drip strip or rain edge to stop water from going in the engineer. So there's a piece of angle here. I cut the piece of angle off, and again, the whole reason I had to cut the whole piece of angle off, cut the rivets off, is because right here, behind this, there's another piece of angle that runs the whole way across the roof, and right there, it was rotten. So because there was a small section of rot there, I had to remove this piece, the piece behind it, and I had to put my patch in here. Now, you can see the weld here. I'm going to end up dusting that down, but that's what I've been working on here. It's coming along pretty good so far. It's just taking time. I also, for those keen-eyed viewers, I removed the vent up top and the angles for it. The cabs had these roof vents that the engineer and fireman could open to get a little bit of ventilation in the cab. That was in rough shape and needs a little bit of work, and I'll zoom in on that and talk about that another time when I get to it. I should get to that in a couple weeks, but that is the next project that I'm going to be working on. So the last thing I wanted to just give a quick update on is the headlight. I've had a volunteer help me fabricate components of the headlight. So this is going to be 1670's new front headlight. It's pretty much done. The only thing we have to do is put these side doors on and get the glass made that it would have had with numbers that would have illuminated. This one's different from the back headlight because this one, if you look inside, there's actually another socket that's specifically designed to illuminate the sides so you can see them on the side of the locomotive. One thing I did want to announce that I'm very, very excited about that I'm not going to talk too much about here. I'm going to put a couple of a couple still images up that I took over the weekend, and I think this next project is something that specifically the PRR community is probably looking forward to. It's going to be pretty interesting. It's definitely going to round out the channel in terms of diversity, and you'll see what I mean when I put the pictures up. Pay very close attention to the number on the back of the tender that I'm going to show. I'm still going to mainly do videos here. I do live 2.5 hours away from Altoona, but I think it'll be something very unique to the channel, and I know the guys out there and girls that volunteer out there are very excited to show the internet the progress that we're making on this other project that the channel is going to start. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and I will put on the picture when you can expect to see one of the first videos from that project as well. So thank you for sticking with me for the whole video. I know it's a long one. It's been 3 months. I appreciate everybody's patience with this. Having a life outside of YouTube is difficult. So, especially I have a 9-month-old daughter. So it is definitely, that's where I've been very busy with that, but I wouldn't change it for anything, but I appreciate everybody. So I will catch you on the next video, probably in August, and have a good one.